What's driving you now then? Just the desire to get better?
I'd say the number one thing, it's what I know. I mean, it's what I've been doing for so long, and
You want to wake up every day?
I think about it all the time. I like to play golf, but if I'm laying in bed at night, I'm not thinking about golf. I'm not thinking about our cases.
Welcome to Tip the Scales podcast. This is a Jenn Gore takeover. We don't know where Maria is at this point. Hopefully she'll come back. I'm here with Lee Coleman, and we got to talk about a lot of great topics about his firm, the longevity of the firm, the growth of the firm over the last 30, 40 years. We talked about his mastermind, M&L, one of the most elite masterminds in the personal injury space. Travels to some amazing places. We talked about Lee going on TV as one of the first firms that went on TV in the 80s. And this was a really great episode, so stay tuned. Lee, welcome to Tip the Scales podcast. Thanks for coming on today.
Hi, Jen. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm great. So for our audience, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everyone the name of your firm, where you're located?
I am Lee Coleman, and my firm is Hughes and Coleman in Kentucky and Tennessee, and also we have Ron Bell Injury Lawyers in New Mexico.
Awesome. You also run another little operation that's called M&L.
It's called M&L Legal Marketing and Management. We have been doing it twice a year since about 1992, I think was the first one. Go nice places twice a year. And share information.
Blown away. It was 1992.
Yeah, that's the first one that we know of. It might have been one since or before that, but I think 1992, the fall of 1992, I believe, was number one.
So what year did the law firm open?
Our law firm, Hughes & Coleman, started in 1985, and then my partner then, Mr. Hughes, and I became actual partners in 1987, which is when we went on TV for personal injury at that point.
So you were one of the first kind of in the field to go on TV in your market, right?
Well, in my hometown, Bowling Green, Kentucky, we were the first. There had been marketing in Kentucky and in Nashville before that by a few years. Then we saw it coming and decided we wanted to be first.
So take me back to the beginning of your legal career. When you went to law school, did you know you were going to do plaintiff's work, or how did you decide?
So I went to law school because I couldn't get a good job coming out of college. I didn't know much about anything. I had a business degree and didn't realize at the time. I think I came out of undergraduate in 1978. 1978. I think there was a bit of a recession. I just didn't know. I just knew I couldn't get a decent job. I would have been an assistant manager at like a gas station food mart. And I thought, I don't think I want to do that. And my mom wanted me to be a lawyer, so it sounded good at the time. So then I went to law school and then came out, got married and moved my wife's hometown, Bowling Green, and started looking for work. So I spent 2 years as a prosecutor, misdemeanor, traffic court, that sort of thing. And then my wife was also a prosecutor. And the conflict rules back then, when I tried to find a job, I couldn't get a job in town with any of the firms. Because of the conflict. Everybody took criminal cases. So I went to an adjacent county, worked for a guy for a year, then did some other stuff for a year, and then started working with my partner, Marshall Hughes, in 1985, sharing offices, basically. And then over the next few years, developed that relationship, and we decided we wanted to be go after personal injury. He had done it for a long time. I was just learning it. And went on TV in 1987.
And what was that like, going on TV in 1987?
We thought we were really smart. I mean, I'm just telling you, you look back on it and you realize you were just first. But I remember the first ad we ran, I forget how much money we were spending a month. It wasn't a lot, $5,000. And I think the first week we had a case come in that settled for $50,000 early on, and thought, this might work. And really, we were just first. And then as competition has come on, and our little hometown of Bowling Green, Kentucky got very competitive. We've since expanded into Nashville, Louisville, Lexington in Kentucky. So we're in those 5 markets in Kentucky and Tennessee. And then in 2008, we bought into the firm in New Mexico. But since I guess about 1996 or 7, somewhere in there, 1998, all I've done is personal injury.
And how big is the firm today in 2025?
Last I saw, we had, I think, 146 total team members, including a few part-timers and a few offshored. And I think we are at 29 or 30 attorneys.
It's a pretty big shop, Lee.
We have been bigger. There was a time we were over 200 employees, but I think we were way overstaffed, too much management. So we've not contracted the size of the firm, but just the number of people. I think we've just gotten better.
More efficient. So, you start the firm in the 80s, and then you start M&L in the early 90s. What was the genesis of M&L, the infamous M&L, which
I can tell you exactly what it was. We had been Jim Sokolov, one of the early pioneers on personal injury marketing. He put on a mastermind, basically a round table. I forget what he called it, in Boston, and it was in Boston in February. So whenever it was cold, February, March. And I'd been to one. My partner had been to one, and the last one we attended, what he learned was within that group of about 30 firms, Sokolov had his inner circle, names you'd recognize, some of the early stalwarts, and some questions would come up. I think my partner Marshall asked a question, and then Sokolov's answer was, well, that's proprietary. I've got the transcripts of what they talked about, found them in some old documents, but what he learned is that Sokolov had his group of 10 firms or so, and they get together and share the good stuff.
So what you're really saying is there's some groups you go to where there's not real sharing.
Well, they were sharing in that. Don't get me wrong. They were sharing. There was good information came out of that. But what you found is if somebody had a really good idea that really worked, they didn't share it with the rest of us. They shared it with their friends.
Yeah.
And being, rednecks from Kentucky, we basically said, we're not paying if we're not getting the good stuff. And according to my partner, he was one of 6 who was there after the meeting, and they said, we got to start our own meeting. He claims to have drawn the short straw. And so we had to start the meeting. And that first meeting, I think, was those 6 firms that were from Jim Sokolov's seminar that said, yeah, we'll do something else. And then after about 4 or 5 years, we got to where we just did it twice a year. And after a number of years, we found out if we go nice places, nice hotels, then we don't have to work for people to show up. So we have a lot of regular attendees that come over and over.
So I've been to a lot of masterminds, and I had the privilege to come to yours.
Yes.
And I would say, as a connoisseur of masterminds, I was very impressed with, number one, I think the key to a mastermind is the people, right?
Right.
If you have great people, it's going to be a great meeting. And you've had the ability to attract people very consistently who, they're going.
A lot of the early attendees were firms that used the same marketing agency as we did. That's who we knew, and we've tried to reach out to get firms come that are a different circle. So we've now got a pretty good mix. I think many of the firms that come I've known for a long time. A number of the firms we share, we have separate groups where we share numbers and see each other's numbers.
Okay, so that's another separate group, kind of not part of M&L.
No, it's not part.
It's a separate group, and that's a financial comparison.
Yeah, we'll call it financial comparison. And the first one was CJ Advertising was the marketing company I was speaking of, and Arnie Malcolm, who started since sold it, but started CJ. He had started basically getting his clients to share numbers, the firms. And I think he did that for a year or two and then just stopped. But I loved it. I'm better at numbers than I am with law probably. So I love the numbers. And so when Arnie stopped it, I approached several people and they said, look, I want to get one going. Would you do it? Yeah, they would attend if we would do it. So we started with the first group. 2002, I think, was the first one I did by myself. Our firm did, and then has grown from there. And so we share everything. under confidentiality agreements. So, you know you're getting the good stuff. You can ask questions.
What I find so compelling about the financial comparison group was you meet people, everyone's got advice, but then really it gives a lot of context to the advice when you see people's profit margins, when you see their marketing spend, when you see, you see everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes the most profitable people in the room are the quietest. They may not even realize what they're doing is pretty phenomenal. And I've seen you dig in and ask hard-hitting questions.
Because I do both, because I run the M&L Marketing Management meetings, and because I run the financial comparison group, and there is overlap, I know who knows what they're talking about. But I've also seen that, some people will come up with ideas, and you don't know if they're going to work or not. They love their idea. Everybody, we all love our ideas because they're ours. But I enjoy digging in, and the idea of the M&L started out was, look, if we all share our successes and our failures, we can each get better. But I've also seen there are firms that aren't going to tell anybody what they're doing because they're so successful and they're very quiet, very under the radar, and it's on purpose, and they're going to stay that way. And I'll never know what their numbers are. I mean, I just listened to Brent Gardozzi talk. He's kind of open about huge numbers, but that's a different game than what we're playing. I don't get the cases he gets. We get the cases that come in off our marketing. We've had some really good results, but we take cases that someone like Mr. Gardozzi are not going to take. It's just not their firm. But the circle of friends that we've developed has helped us learn how to do a great job for those clients. So I think our number one thing now is just push to get great results for each client, and everything else will take care of itself.
You've seen a lot of firms over the years grow and develop, coming through your groups and in your network. What do you think, just from your perspective of looking at firms, can you see who's going to kind of be successful, or what is the key indicators of the firms that you see that really, take traction?
What I've seen is if the owners and partners of the firm really are on the same page, because my partner and I were not on the same page for a lot of things for a lot of years. And looking back, I don't know what we could have done if we'd agreed on things. For better, for worse, that's just what it was. But then I see firms, many of them that, they are, simpatico with each other, and man, they kill it. So I would say the number one thing is look at the ownership level, the partnership level, and do they really believe in the same thing? And are they all, willing to carry a load? I've seen partnerships where somebody, hey, they got a lot of money and now they want to take it easy. They're going to get run over. They're going to get run over by somebody who loves what they're doing and is going to keep going. But beyond that, I just say there's a lot of different ways to success. I see firms that are very successful that are kind of surprising, and yet you get in and they just work. In my hometown, there's a lawyer, I won't mention names, but made fun of by some of the lawyers around. But man, all I saw is she just worked all the time. She just worked. Hard work will overcome a lot of stuff.
Hard work and revenue, right?
Right. Yeah, you got to have, if you want to, I think I said something that I was surprised came back later on. So, if you want to make $1 million, you have to bring in at least $1 million of revenue. So it does have to start with revenue. And you have to get to a certain place to where you're comfortable being able to quit thinking about revenue and just think about the client's case. So what we're really working on is, in our firm, is not having to worry about revenue. Revenue will take care of itself if, you really do a good job of getting the case in the door and then working on the case.
Yeah, go fundamentals.
A lot of fundamentals. Yes, you can still pay attention to expenses. So marketing, is more competitive all the time. Spend more and more money. So yeah, the expense side is always there, and you can always work on it. But we want to pay our people well. Don't want them to leave, and that's expensive. So.
Yeah. You run a tight ship over there. One thing about your groups is I notice you keep the trains running on time. You get people back on track. You're no nonsense over there. Is that, your style in the firm too?
At the firm currently, we are following the EOS
Hmm.
system, Entrepreneurial Operating System, the book Traction, for those who don't know what it is. And that started in about 2 years and 9 months ago. My sons and I bought out Mr. Hughes.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we did. And happy to say we've now been able to pay him off. That happened last month. So, but since that, in that two and a half, 2 and 3/4 years, the first thing we said is, what's our plan going to be? Because I think our failing as a firm had often been, chasing this, chasing that, and not sticking the course. And there'll be times where money's tight. And so then maybe you abandon whatever plan. So we've just tried to say, what's our plan? I believe you don't have to have a perfect plan, but you got to have a good plan, and then you got to follow it. So we're just trying to make sure we follow our plan, and we're always trying to make the plan a little bit better, but not being scattered about it.
I did EOS for about 4 years, and I found the same thing. I feel like everything can't be a priority. You have to prioritize over the quarter. You have to prioritize over the year. And I think a lot of law firms, people are not on the same page about what is the number one metric, the number one priority. And if you don't have everyone rowing in the same direction, or, well, I thought this is a priority, or I thought it creates a lot of unnecessary chaos. And I do find that EOS is a good system to kind of like install, order in a firm.
It doesn't really matter what the plan is. There are a lot of plans. You go in the room down there with all the attendees. There's probably some firms that are so successful you'll never know it. My problem, probably yours, the problem of most people who've been doing a long time is, I can have 20 great ideas in an hour, and it just drives the team crazy when you just try to do all this stuff and figuring out what's going to be the next great idea. So we're looking for a few add-ons, different things that we can add, but then we go back and put it in place. And so I'm now in the visionary role. I also get to work on our high-value cases, not as the principal attorney, but pushing the principal attorney to push them as high as they can. So all that fits in. But more than anything, I think we've gotten some really good people on board. And I couldn't do what I do without having them back there doing their work day in, day out.
I really respect what you've built and your longevity. And it seems like you are still here to play for the next many years. What do you say to people? Like, you've been an early adopter. You have embraced technology. You've done a lot of things to constantly innovate. What do you say to people who are like, well, I don't want to, my firm has operated this way. I don't want to change. I'm at this certain age. I don't want to change.
Well, I'll go back to what I said. There's a lot of different paths to success. So the first thing I would say is I can't tell them they're wrong. They might do it great. There might be lawyers out there with a yellow pad and a quill pen, and unless you see their numbers, you don't know that they're wrong.
Lee wants to see your numbers before he gives you any advice.
I'm telling you, why should I tell somebody it's not going to work if I don't know? Having said that, I look at what we're doing, and could we do what we're doing without all of it? No. What would it look like? I don't know. But, I think I look at the new technology and the lens I'm looking at. Can it help my clients? Can we get better money? So some of these things with AI where they can scan medical records, my lawyers don't want to have to fool with it because it's something new, but I know they can't look at the records that quick. So we're trying to find the things that if we use them, I can see the path to more money for our clients. And if it looks like that might work, then we're going to look at it.
I think what you're talking about is adoption rate. I've seen this. It's like another tool, another piece of technology, and people get technology fatigue. And then you invest in these technologies, and then you find out only 20% of your firm is using the tools.
Well, one of the things that's really, and it's taken me a while to learn how good it is under EOS. You have different positions and try to get people to stay in their lane. I'm trying to stay in my lane. But Jonica Whitehall is our chief legal officer. has been now for a couple of years, year and a half, lose track. And she is much more systematic about, and better with the people. I never understood why people get upset when I talk to them, because I'm just trying to help them, But then I'd find out they cry after I leave. And so she's better with the people, and she's also better about saying, look, we're working on this. We're working on a lot of the things with TBIs, testing to add that to what we're doing. We were already looking at them, but I think there's a level above where we've been, and we're trying to get there. And she's good at that. So I let her handle that part. And so I've sent her several texts. What about this? What about that? She'll put them on her list. She won't do them next week, or won't even do them, but if they're on her list, and then we'll talk them through and try to figure out what will help. So we're investigating a lot of things, the AI and different things, but you still have to come back and say, what is the playbook you want your people to follow? And you can't just change it all the time.
Over the years, what have you seen as been like the biggest waste in a law firm?
I said, and I don't mean this disrespectfully for any of our attorneys, but they understand. I need more earners and not as many learners.
What does that mean, Lee?
Well, I mean, you bring on a lawyer. I can think of a young lady we brought on a few years ago, extremely smart, Vanderbilt Law School. She worked for us a year and a half and left. And but when she came in, she didn't have the ability to work a case by herself. Now, she did associate work for a really good litigator that we have, and that was helpful. But all the time we spent, trying to teach her how to handle her own cases was just time lost. So I'm less inclined to do that. If somebody's a pure associate helping another experienced litigator, then let's do that. And if they turn into being a litigator later on, fine. But I don't really have a path to bring somebody in and let them learn for 3 years if they're not filling a role that helps our clients in the meantime. Again, if they're the associate to a litigator, that works. But there's other roles they can play. But that is hard just because you're having to pay for those people, you're having to carry it, and then I look at the numbers, and at the end of the year, somebody's brought in $120,000. I can't make that work. So that's part of the staffing where we've said, who do we want as lawyers and what's their job? And then who do we want, for the non-lawyer team members? It's not easy, but I can look at the numbers and say, well, that's a problem. Okay. But it's hard. It's hard to find the people that you need. If a lawyer leaves, you got to have somebody come in and fill that role. So everybody struggles with that.
Have you always had a plan to have a firm as large as you have now?
My partner, I could tell he wanted the big, I could always tell he'd like an office in every city. I think I was probably more cautious by nature. I never had designs as far as how big do we want to be. I look now, and we've got things. Well, what if we did this? What if we did that? So we're looking. But I'm not trying to get to a certain size, and I make a lot more money than I need, so right now it's really fun.
What's driving you now then? Just the desire to get better?
I'd say the number one thing, it's what I know. I mean, it's what I've been doing for so long, and
you want to wake up every day?
I think about it all the time. I like to play golf, but if I'm laying in bed at night, I'm not thinking about golf. I'm thinking about our cases.
It's your passion.
Yeah, and it's still fun for me. And I think because of the fact our team is just killing it, doing great things and helping our clients, I want to go into the office. I want to do all the things. I want to work with our team, help them out. If it wasn't going well, I wouldn't be so interested in it. But, I hear all the talk about selling out for private equity. I'm just not interested right now. I like what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's like if I can create value and get up every day and do something I like, why would I stop, right?
Right.
Circling back to M&L, you mentioned you go to some fun locations. Can you mention some of those locations?
Sure. Well, last month in July, we went to Banff, Canada. I've been looking at the postcards forever and wanting to go, and I said, we're going to go to Banff. It turned out it's surprisingly easy to get to. Direct flight from Nashville to Calgary, Canada. then we've been to Aspen, we've been to Vail, we go to the islands in the winter, someplace warm in the winter, someplace cool in the summer is kind of what we try to do. And upcoming, I think we're we're going to Hawaii, I think in January, and then we'll be going to Big Sky, Montana, another place I've been wanting to go. That's a year from now.
I love how you publish that so far in advance. So people are making vacations out of this. People are bringing their family. I mean, when I went to M&L, it's a family affair.
It's
there was probably 200 people.
In the meetings, we'll have like 120 or something, but yes, they've got their spouses, family, kids. They do. Yes, they make my family does. And two of my sons are lawyers with the firm, so they brought their kids. So it works out pretty good.
I found that some of the value of the meeting is just the conversations that you're having at breakfast. There's a lot of people in our audience, they've never been to a mastermind at all.
Right.
I think yours is you're at the diamond level. This is the highest level of masterminds.
What I've been told, and what I've come to believe is the difference in what we put on. And I know there's others people are putting on, and I'm sure they have their value and great. I don't know how they operate because I'm not there. But with ours, we typically will start 9 in the morning, go to like 2 in the afternoon.
Which is nice because sometimes you go and you're there 9 to 6, straight to dinner. Your mind doesn't even have a moment to decompress.
We've gravitated toward this over time. It didn't, we used to do that, go later. And we like to have downtime for people to do things, but really you can hear an idea, and then I'll question it as the moderator. I'll try to pull out all the information I get. But if it's your firm and you hear somebody else talk about something, then you can see them at breakfast, you can see them at lunch, you can see them at a cocktail party we do. And that time to sit around a pool in the winter or wherever you might be, I think it's unique as far as I know to how much time we have to do that.
Now, there's some controversy. Some vendors can come. They can come in the meeting. They can't come in the meeting. This is a whole thing people get very upset about.
Well, if they get upset, I guess they haven't told me. My CFO, Brian Fisher, now handles all that. I honestly can't tell you, exactly who would be in or not in. But yes, we're not big enough that I can we don't have a vendor hall. So I can't have, 6 competing vendors in there. And we try not to bring somebody in if we really don't know they add value.
Correct.
So, somebody wants to come and say, hey, I got a great new product, I want to come. I'd love to have everybody. We honestly don't have room. And we do have to kind of pick and choose. And I don't really like to have competing vendors there. It's not the feel that we want, but I also want to try to, have an opening to where good new ideas can come in. So maybe if somebody has a complaint, they can let us know, and we'll try to get better at it.
Well, you're always open to feedback. That's one of your key strengths. And I think that's why you get better every year.
We're trying.
But when we're talking about getting into M&L, isn't there you have to kind of apply? It's not like, oh, I'm just going to give you money, you can come.
No, it's not apply, but basically we start out, we're full. So we'll have some turnover each time, but we can't.
You have very low turnover, Lee.
Yeah, but we have some. But the principle is market exclusivity. So when you came, we checked with Bruce Miller from Atlanta. Bruce, do you mind if Jenn comes? And he said, that's okay. Had he said no, then I would have honored the market exclusivity. So that's number one. If we've already got somebody, because I heard somebody else say, well, I've been blackballed from M&L. I said, no, we already have an attendee from whatever that city was. But if somebody wants to come, they're not used to because like this, we're here at Big Truck Auto, all you got to do is sign up. And there's, no question here about where you are. So we'll look at where the offices are. And we try to check, because we've had a few times where we've had somebody come in and it turns out, well, they did compete in some way we didn't know about it. We don't guarantee market exclusivity because it's not what I'm trying to do, but we want a free flow of ideas. And if you're sitting there with your competitor across the table, you're not going to tell them your good stuff, or you might tell them your worst stuff and tell them it was your great stuff. So this seminar is all trying to help each other. And it works better when people are open and sharing. And we've got some they're just in adjacent markets. Some states we have 2 or 3 firms from different parts of the state, and they are very closed mouthed. They don't want to share their good ideas because they're in one part of the state, but they see somebody in another part of the state that they consider their competitors. From our standpoint, they're a different market. So we do our best we can, and I think it works. Probably not perfect.
That is really why I started getting involved in masterminds, because I would go into Atlanta to go to the local bar event, and you want to ask people, what are you doing? And people are not honest.
Yeah.
You're not having honest conversations. Right. So it's very refreshing to go somewhere and you can say, hey, this is what I'm doing for marketing. And people don't really feel they're like, hey, yeah, let's chat.
My background on that was being the first lawyers on TV in our little town at the time, Bowling Green, Kentucky, was not well received at all by all the other lawyers. Oh, I would never do that. It didn't bother me because I had a family to feed.
So say more about that, because some of our newer lawyers would not understand why it was controversial to go on TV in the 80s.
So my background on that was, so as I told you, my wife was a prosecutor. So when I wanted to get a job, not being a prosecutor, I didn't have many options. And so I went to an adjacent county, worked for a guy, good lawyer, good country lawyer, really good, the country lawyer, Gary Lawson's his name. And one of the things I did for him was I would attend bankruptcy hearings in my town of Bowling Green, Kentucky. And I realized that he charged more because you had to drive back and forth to Bowling Green 2 times, go from that county to this county 2 times for the initial hearing and the discharge hearing. And so when I was then left him and I was totally on my own, making no money, and this had been 1984, I guess. 1984, making no money. My wife had a prosecutor salary, which wasn't much. And I knew about this higher bankruptcy fee because you had to drive twice. So I started running ads in classified newspapers back when you actually got a physical newspaper, the classified ads saying, fixed fee. I think it was $160 plus an $80 filing fee, $240. I'll do your bankruptcy. And I was getting about 15 bankruptcies a month, and that kept me going. And the other lawyers around said, I would never do that. I would never do that. And a mentor of mine, we were at the local pool hall lawyers would go to afterwards and get a drink and tell him about that. He asked me to look around the room, and he says, you point out one person in this room, a lot of lawyers, who really cares whether you make your next mortgage payment or not. They don't care. And I thought, you're right. And so I just quit worrying about it at that point. And so before we did the TV ads, I'd done the bankruptcy. I did that for a couple of years.
So you're already doing stuff that's controversially.
It wasn't, well, it was legal.
It's really not controversial.
I wouldn't say controversial. It was just beneath everybody else.
So you're talking about big lawyer egos.
Yes.
Where you don't really have that. You're willing to do what it takes to get the job done.
I'm sure I've got ego in my own ways, but I guess from my standpoint, I quit worrying about what they were thinking. But because of that, the local lawyers weren't my friends. And so these lawyers, not many of them, they were friendly, but they weren't my friends. So the lawyers from the M&L, the lawyers from our peer groups, our masterminds, they're my closest friends. Among lawyers anyway. So I enjoy it.
Now, you said your sons are lawyers.
Right.
Would you give advice to young people today to go to law school?
I'll give the advice I gave to my sons when they were going to school. I want you to go to school and get a degree in something you can get a job in and enjoy going to work every day. And that's what I tell people in my office. If you don't enjoy coming to work, you need to look for something else. Life's too short. And yet a lot of people are doing jobs just because they have to feed their family and they don't have a better option. But I don't see anything wrong with being a lawyer, but it's changing. We'll see. You hear these talks about private equity going to run us out of business. I don't know. But do what you want. Do what you love.
And when people talk about you, I know you don't care what they think, but what is the legacy you want to leave behind when people say that Lee Coleman?
I think right now, honestly, I don't care what they say about me to answer the question. But We really are working really hard to get the most money we can for our clients. And I hear in this, they like to talk about volume shops. So there is this idea with the speakers down there that the firms like ours who sign up more cases than they do really aren't real large. I still get that feeling. Oh yeah, you listen to them, and they'll be nice about it and respectful.
They might not have the data though, Lee.
We signed up. However, I don't know. I think last month we might have signed up 300 cases, give or take, of various types. And I would almost guarantee you that 275 of those were cases none of these lawyers would have helped. The ones that are on the speaker.
They just want the type.
And they've earned it. Listen, they've earned the right to do that. They do great work. But I look at the people that hire us, and they need help. They've been hurt, and we're going to help them. And for most of those people, you get the message out through TV, now more and more through digital. But this is what we do. And we're also doing great work on the bigger cases that we have. I know the results we're getting, and I'm proud of what we're doing.
I think that people will realize that those big, cases are fewer and farther between. I mean, everyone would love to work on those, but that is not, if you were to take 100 average personal injury cases, it's not the typical case. And so you almost have to have a decent sized firm love to work on those cases too. I'm not saying working on the scratch and dent cases, but the everyday run-of-the-mill personal injury case, what you're saying is that those people deserve justice too.
They at least deserve somebody to look at their case and see what's there.
Give legal advice.
And if they're hurt, we're going to help them. Now, helping them doesn't always mean that you get them a settlement, because it may be you help them figure out, wait, it was their fault, or they went to the ER and then they're okay after that. So we don't know, but we're going to look at it when they call us, because it's changed. When I started practicing, somebody called you 60 days after the collision. That was pretty quick. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
60 days?
There was no
We don't even take that case now.
There was no internet back then. Go figure. So whereas now people, it's not unusual at all to get a call within an hour of an accident, because they've seen ads, they know that it's there. So it's just a different landscape now. But we're going to look at it and help them in whatever that means.
You just seem like such a lawyer of the people, like willing to, such no ego. I know you say you think you have ego, but I think you're one of the most egoless people in the industry.
Oh, that may be a bad thing. I don't know.
No,
I listen to
you right now.
Yeah, I look at some of the lawyers down here, and they've got ego, but man, they've earned it. And I think it helps their clients. But we push really hard on our clients that are seriously hurt, and I know we can do the work, and so it balances out, I think.
Well, thank you so much for coming on Tip the Scales podcast. And if anyone needs to talk with a lawyer you're in Kentucky,
Tennessee, and the Ron Bell firm in New Mexico, we'll help them.
Awesome. Thanks, Lee.
All right. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this valuable, please like, subscribe, and comment. See you on the next one.